Good morning. My name is Sean Nolan. I'm a reporter at GovInsider. Welcome to the Fireside chat on digital inclusivity here at GovInsider's Festival of Innovation. Today we'll be discussing how governments can tackle the digital divide and the best ways to promote tech literacy across society. We're thrilled to be working with Intel for this session. Thank you to Intel for making this discussion possible. Now, I'm very fortunate to be joined by two great panelists today. Akanksha Balani, Regional Alliance Head, Team AWS, APAC, and Japan at Intel, and Debashis, Regional Digital Transformation Specialist, Bangkok Regional Hub of the United Nations Development Programme. Now, I'm going to jump straight into the questions. Debashis, in your experience with digital transformation, how has the digital divide affected lives in the region, especially during the pandemic period?
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, depending on the place where you are. Coming to the questions, yes, pandemic has highlighted the urgency of for the countries to accelerate the national digital transformation and to unlock the potential of digital technologies for their national economy. So as governments are rushing to develop digital strategies, expand connectivity, and implement digital public services for the new normal, core focus should, were put to the people. So people were put the center of the whole digital transformation, and efforts were there to so that no one is left behind in the transition of digital societies. So as persistent digital divide acts as amplifier of existing social, cultural, and economic inequalities. So accelerating digital transformation actually can leave the most vulnerable population further behind. So people can be left behind because of discrimination, geography, shocks, fragility, socioeconomic status, and weak governance. So these factors also drive persistent persistent digital divide, for example, between genders, rural and urban populations, between different socioeconomic groups. So to summarize, it does not matter if you have internet coverage, if you cannot afford the data bundle. It does not matter if you can get online if public services are not in language you understand. No, it does not matter if you get online and if you cannot know how to use internet browser. So and it does not matter if you get online there are real impediments and many people who are facing on the ground. So we need to address those barriers, and those are the most affected are usually those are already in margins of society. So I think as we have accelerated towards this digital transformation. So during this pandemic, this also affected and widened this digital divide in various parts in the region.
Thank you. I think that was a really good summary of the challenge at hand. And now, Akanksha, with your experience in developing new software and programs, what have been some innovations that have caught your eye, which may be able to help close the digital divide?
Great question. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I really think that with the world that we're living in today, you know, whether it's digital, whether it's virtual, or it's in the office or around the office, we've seen some trends that have been catching up. And I guess the pandemic has kind of pivoted those innovations towards more digital inclusivity. A few of the innovations or tech trends are, from my perspective, AI. So there's a Forrester survey that shows that by the year 2023, which is not far away, there's going to be 50 billion devices and 500 billion sensors that are smartly connected over the internet. I'm sure that the pandemic has further pivoted the need for having access to devices a lot more than visual or face-to-face. One more really important data point to point out is that 40% of these devices will be communicating machine to machine. And so we're sitting on this amazing hub of data. And for us to figure out various innovations and technology transformations to help assess that data, access that data, work with that data to help us drive the best insight for industry problem challenges, for government problem challenge solving is very pivotal. So technologies like AI that really help us drive the right insight from the data that we have, technologies like cloud that actually provide access, today to places where obviously people cannot get to offices or collaborate or continue the journey from an industry transformation perspective. Or it's really technologies like Edge, where you actually give access to connectivity as well as networking and collaborating capability I would say, the three topmost tech innovations and trends that are supporting the convergence as well as the removing the divide from a digital perspective. But not only is it really the innovations, but the capability as well as the vision nationally that government as well as policy makers of the country recognizing that this technology is actually going to help them solve for global citizens as well as national citizens. It's really, the convergence of both is going to really help us drive a stronger digital transformation and remove the divide that we have, and continue the journey on economic growth and transformation versus thinking about how they can, adopt technology for individual goals.
Thank you. A lot of really insightful examples there, and the three big technologies mentioned is really interesting. Now, in order for these to have an effect, Debashis, can you share with us how the UNDP is working to improve access to technology across the region?
Sure. Before coming to the UNDP specific, I would like to talk a little bit from UN perspective. So the United Nations is aligned behind Secretary General's support for several for universal connectivity by 2030, as illustrated through the roadmap of digital cooperation. So in the roadmap of digital cooperation, UN Secretary General noted that he clearly emphasized on that, and the vision was that everyone should have equal opportunity to become empowered through ICT. So this includes both having affordable access as well as having the required skill and knowledge to adopt and uses of digital technologies. So it also means that relevant content must be available locally and accessible for all. So as our awareness of risk and challenges associated with digital technologies such as misinformation, hate speech, or cybercrime grows, so inclusive digital transformation also means protecting people from adverse effect of digital technologies. So creating awareness for technology risks, empowering people to actively mitigate them is becoming key aspect of digital inclusion. So the Broadband Commission led by ITU and UNESCO has been working towards universal connectivity for many decades. Recently, UNICEF and ITU have launched the GIGA initiative, the goal of connecting every school to the internet. And UNHCR's innovation service promotes digital access for refugees. So for UNDP, we have a chief digital office in our headquarters, and we have regional offices where we have digital teams to facilitate digital transformation activities within the region. And UNDP has been working extensively on connectivity to the remote areas or vulnerable populations, and skilling and addressing other barriers for digital inclusions. So we have also supported digital livelihoods for women and developing indicators to measure the gender divide, specifically from digital perspective. So in the region, basically, we have been working with many countries and government partners on digital digital transformation initiatives. And specifically during the pandemic, we have kept this as a center of our design, that everyone should have equal access. So if I take one example, we have been supporting 10 odd country offices of UNDP in the region for digital solution for vaccine distribution and management. So it started with India. There was an EVIN initiative about 6 years back, which was supported by Gavi for universal immunization. So when we were hit by COVID-19 pandemic, so we quickly, based on the request from government, we quickly customized the system for COVID vaccination. And we have also developed another module, which is called CoWIN. And we have ensured that it is not only digital single channel. For any of these initiative, we have multiple channels for access. So people can easily go to the vaccination center with their digital ID and get registered on spot and get vaccinated. So today with these systems, more than 750 millions of doses have been vaccinated through this CoWIN platform. So similarly, there are other 9 countries which we are closely supporting similar initiatives so that vaccines are managed and distributed equitably. So these are some of the examples. We can go on with multiple examples, but I think the paucity of time, we should limit to one.
Thank you, Debashis. Can I just follow up about, you talk about digital IDs for vaccination. How would people bring this digital ID to the vaccination center? Would it be on a phone? Would it be a QR code or something like that? How does that process work? Could you go a bit more into that, please?
Yeah, sorry. Actually, for this, there are multiple modes. So typically, people who has smartphone or digital access, they would have the soft copy, or in the phone they can carry that. But think in the rural places where they may not have that smartphone to show their ID and all. So in that case, they are also okay with the physical copy of digital ID. In India, we have called Aadhaar. So they come with that Aadhaar card and they get registered in this. But and then alternatively, say again, to make it accessible to all, say there are a fraction of people who may not have Aadhaar. So we have alternate mechanism with using any other ID, like passport or any other national ID or government ID. They can use that for getting the vaccination. So ultimate objective is they should not be prohibited to get vaccinated. They should have equal access for vaccination. And digital should not be a barrier to that.
Great, thank you. Thank you for elaborating there. Now, I think something that you mentioned previously was about education and about training. So a question for both of you: what are some of the ways that new skills can be sort of brought to societies that are perhaps less familiar with technology? Akanksha, let's start with you.
Yeah, great question. And I think it's a very pivotal question. Skilling, I think, continues to be, at the crux of the way in which we can adopt technology, and literally have it impact every possible citizen that can get access to this technology. So I think the ways in which, new skills can be embedded into society is not going to be led by one vertical or one swim lane. I think it's going to be a collaboration between technology providers. It's going to be a collaboration between national agencies as well as the government when they come together by figuring out ways in which they can apply skills based on applied technology, which makes farmers get to know how they can do better analyses of their crop yield, for example, or have nurses that, are actually in their medical field, but don't really know how to manage equipment or to identify the right ways in which they can figure out the images, of patient health and mental health. So getting them to get better skills. So vocational training is definitely a very important factor, and to see how technology can be supported by driving better vocational training is very important. I've seen, taxi drivers and people that are providing public transportation now being able to use kiosks and getting customers into their cars, while earlier it was just like, here, it's going to be on a cash to cash basis. So it's starting to, kind of get there, but of course we have miles to go, and educating societies on the need for learning a little bit more about the technologies that are out there that are actually helping them live better lives. For example, as I mentioned earlier, taking some schooling courses, which are actually now implemented into various universities and colleges on AI, on applied AI. AI for business, AI for society. Those are actual courses now that are part of universities, part of schools. In fact, in India, we've actually worked with the CBSE board, where we've introduced a program called AI for Youth, as well as a program for AI for All. So if there are, citizens, as well as, the young workforce of the countries that want to start to not only learn math or science or, engineering, but actually converge it with how technology can help them with their future work paths. Those would be ways in which I see that, the skilling actually is starting to be built. And it's really about being able to provide that type of a national platform that I think companies like Intel, companies like AWS, and then agencies like UN are really helping pivot. But as I mentioned earlier, this won't, and none of this will be possible without, national bodies recognizing the need to continue to drive this skills and to build the current, the present, the past, as well as the future workforce that will continue to hopefully build the right convergence of industry expertise, government need, as well as technology advancement.
Great, thank you so much. I just wanted to quickly follow up with you there. You mentioned that AI is so important and could be so important in helping local business and local economy. Could you quickly talk about the sort of use of AI perhaps in economic recovery for developing countries?
Oh, absolutely. I think AI is a technology that's impacting literally every stream of the industry, as well as in the government space, whether it's FSI, whether it's retail, it's consumer. From the chatbots to the credit card detection, type of management systems, and the ways in which we can try, especially to figure out ways in which we can use the data that's available to us, like I alluded to earlier, for it to actually drive advantage as well as social and economic growth for the country is very necessary. So I think examples like how Singapore is driving AI. So the AI Singapore initiative, for example, where various startups as well as industries are getting together to help solve real world problems, hunger, access to society safety, citizen safety, safe nations. Those are all huge projects that I think nationally everyone is putting together to try and ensure that availability and access, as well as the convergence of technology, I guess, along with access to what the citizens are doing, actually help drive their safety. I think other ways in which we've seen this working is in healthcare. With the ministries of health getting together to help identify situational awareness of instances like the pandemic, but in addition to that, helping drive stronger research, for health and safety. Again, is a way in which I'm starting to see stronger digital innovation coming in. And then literally just back into the government, you've seen that, especially in India, we've got over 1 billion citizens digitized, with the national security, policies that have been put in. Singapore has done that way years earlier. I think every country within APJ, as well as of course in the world, are working towards trying to get access to citizen data that can eventually help drive a better standard of life, standard of living, and the right kind of support that a nation can provide to their citizens. So yeah, I think it's really about trying to ensure that this technology is actually impacting the lives of everyday citizens, and being able to continuously modernize with the latest and the greatest trends. That's where really we're going to start to see industry growth, societal growth, as well as national growth.
Great, thank you so much. I think that was a really detailed look at the importance of these advanced technologies. And Debashis, to you, could you talk about the importance of education and perhaps how international cooperation can help this field?
Yes, certainly. I actually see there are initiatives within the country level or within say a specific geography level, but if there are say wider collaboration, it certainly will help. So overall, when say any nation or government partner, they want to drive the digital, is very clear that we should put living Nohan behind lens to that, and people, we should put people at the heart of the whole digital transformation agenda. And for that, I think there are importance, because in Asia Pacific region, if I talk, there are different maturity levels of governments or countries. So on the one hand, you would have Singapore, Japan, South Korea, to some extent India, who are quite advanced on digital technologies. On the other hand, there are laggards, where people are struggling with basic connectivity. So I think it is important that we do that international cooperation, and advanced countries, they help the other ones for technology transformation, technology sharing, and also helping hands with their resources, so that there is equitable access, there is connectivity, and people can easily come within the digital net. So I think international cooperation in this field is really important. And it is, having said that, it is also important to link the digital things with education. Like in some of the countries, we have seen that, okay, whatever is the industry need is, if you talk about the employability or private sector need in digital side, so that is fed to the educational system, so that people are taught in their educational system with these digital technologies. The other thing is about basic digital skills, which is required for accessing, say, digital public services, or getting benefit from government digital transformation. So those things should be available to everyone, every citizen of the nation. So this is how I think we need to, as far as education is concerned, we need to have multi-pronged approach to target different sections of society, so that no one is left behind.
Great, thank you so much. I think that was a really interesting, insightful response. Akanksha, coming from this perspective of a private organization, how can governments and private organizations work together to close the digital divide? Could you elaborate a bit more on that, please?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is obviously a collaboration and a partnership, and really it's the C word that I always like to say. It's really the power of collaborations that have continued to help, I think, every country nationally to help bridge the digital gap. But I think across the various needs of the country, industries have been coming together to collaborate with the government bodies. For example, I know we've been talking about education, but we have national educational policies that have been implemented across various countries that now mandate the need for skilling on technology. So the moment that happens, and when country charters have been built, it's really the industries that kind of come together and provide, the right resources, the right skilling, the right platforms. We announced, so many centers of excellence, as well as innovation centers that are basically platforms or hubs for getting students to practitioners to even domain leaders to come in and practice what they need to build use cases that are going to be important for their individual work environments and obviously for national support. So that's definitely one. Providing national platforms is very, has been something that has been trending, especially in the world of APJ. We just announced between Intel and AWS, the Cloud Innovation Center, which I think is also something that we're trying to work out in other countries of ASEAN as well as in Asia, of trying to be the hub for developing an innovation, where use cases like, child welfare, use cases like keeping education uninterrupted in schools, use cases like medical research, as well as genomics, sequencing, actually are coming together as use cases for supporting economic growth and country development. So building these types of national platforms is very pivotal. In addition to that, of course, coming together on the skilling part, on the education part, integrating it into also, policy and an everyday environment for IT leaders within the government, discussing what the digitization policy of the country will be, and supporting them with use cases, with real world examples that we can bring in from an international perspective into the countries that we're working with. Have all been really great ways in which I've seen the digital divide actually being mitigated. I know that when COVID hit, we built a national data platform with Fractal, which is one of the leading, analytics platforms for the government in India. And through that, we managed to build so many different models as well as data points for helping drive stronger situational awareness, stronger, heat mapping, and is still today used as a very important platform for even mitigating COVID and identifying or predicting where the next region of impact could be. In addition to that, there's various smart agriculture, smart drone technologies that today we're trying to implement, along with the government to try and make, all the vocational providers that are actually the ones that are pivoting national and economic growth, get there, get access and get scalability with the help of this technology to help them live their everyday lives and earn their everyday bread and butter. So I think it has been the right partnerships from a public and private perspective. And I think it's something that will continue. And I think industry leaders, technology providers, and the government and national bodies coming together is the only way that we're going to drive the strongest and the most scalable and most strong platform for digital innovation.
Thank you so much. That was a really interesting, a lot of important things to look forward to there. Could I just quickly get one sentence from each of you about something exciting that you're looking forward to in the year ahead? Debashis, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think, the couple of things. One is, of course, the government integrating the policy along with the digital capacity building and skill building, and getting universal access policies for like public-private partnerships, cross-sectoral collaborations, so etc. would be the mechanisms to drive this acceleration further. And of course, I'm also excited about emerging technologies, some of which Akanksha has mentioned, which would be more embedded into the digital transformation from a country level. And also to talk about the accessibility, we are talking about satellite broadband a lot these days. There are countries or small island nations who are out of net, and we are talking about LEO satellite to connect them with and bring their population into digital net. So some of these technologies I believe will be the game changer in near future as far as digital transformation is concerned.
Thank you. And Akanksha, really quickly, just one thing you're excited about?
Yeah, I comply with everything that Debashis said, and I'm also really looking forward to living a hybrid world, you know, where we can go into the offices and travel, but also with the right, you know, protocols from a healthcare perspective that I feel that collaborations between industry and the government will help pivot. So looking forward to having digitized citizens living their best lives in a hybrid environment in a hybrid world.
Great, thank you so much. And that rounds up our discussion today on digital inclusivity. Thank you again to Intel for making this discussion possible. Thank you to our great panelists, Debashis and Akanksha. Thank you for your incredible insights. And a special thank you to the audience today for joining us. We have another session coming up that's shining a spotlight on Singapore's innovations. Stick around to find out more about that. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again soon.